The heroine admits something that even sent shivers through her body, and she finds it hard to imagine what the servants feel when she is angry. Realizing that it is necessary to smile, Rosalina went out to the servants in a robe, trying not to frighten them. But as soon as the girls saw the angry lady, they were scared half to death, opening their mouths in surprise. One of the maids even had a magazine fall out of her hands, after which it fell loudly on the stone floor. Coming closer, Rosalina decided to take the magazine in her hands and read what the maids were interested in. The magazine is titled Gossip Girl, and the biggest news in it is that the hero of the empire is finally getting a divorce. The heroine of the manhwa decided to open the magazine while reading the most important news that the hero of the empire, Filesden, is getting a divorce. From the magazine, the girl learned that the sole heir of the Filesden family, which is considered the most powerful empire, is getting a divorce. Artesian always ended battles with his victory, but marriage with Rosalina was more like war than love. All this was written in a magazine that Rosalina read, wondering who would take her place. After that, the girl could only wait grudgingly for the maid to wipe her hair with a towel. What she read from the magazine kept Rosalind from thinking about anything else, but at the same time she was not upset about it. Suddenly, another maid entered the room to the heroine, who was very afraid of her. It turns out that she brought the lady a letter. The protagonist raised her hand and, looking at the maid, asked her to give her this very letter. The girl looked at the back of the letter, hoping to find out who it was from because she was very curious. It turns out that the blue letter was written for Rosalind from the Duke of Filston, her ex-husband. The protagonist decided to open the letter at once, thinking about what her ex-husband wanted to tell her. Rosalina noticed that from the letter immediately fell a check, which she quickly picked up. Taking it in her hands, the girl read that it was a check for as much as 1,000,000 coins, which incredibly surprised her. Also shocked, the girl read the sheet to what it said was a down payment of 20%. At the end of the letter, Artesian also wrote that he hoped that Rosalina would not change her mind about her decision. Such good news only made the heroine happy, causing her to smile widely. After all, in fact, the pink-haired happy girl is only happy that she divorced her husband. Happy for the fact that she had more motivation, the heroine asked the maid to bring her any unremarkable cape. After a while, the protagonist was already in a completely different place, where she was going to spend her millions. It turns out the girl was at the auction, which has already taken out the main product of the day. The precious commodity of the auction is the tears of the wind, which are very much needed by the protagonist. Rosalina sat at the table and did not take her eyes off the jewelry because she really wants to get the important tears of wind. The girl needs them very much for the reason that with their help, it will be possible to remove the curse of Leodore. But looking at the letter that her ex-husband sent her earlier, the heroine rejoiced for the fact that she has a thick purse. The protagonist is already imagining how easily she will get the tears of the wind, and with the remaining money she will buy herself a lot of sweets. But after a few minutes of bargaining, the manhwa heroine realized that she had jumped to conclusions too much. She raised her number and said the cost, but the mysterious man next to her kept offering an amount more. Looking at him, Rosalina realizes that the man beside her could easily win the auction and take the tears of the wind. The mysterious masked man always offers a larger sum, while remaining silent and seems to be looking at the heroine as well. The girl recalls that she had a check in her hand for about 1,000,000 gold coins. But just because of this stranger, she lost almost the entire amount at a time, which she had not thought through. The stranger kept offering an amount more than the protagonist, and that was what was starting to alarm her. Clutching her license plate in the palm of her hand, Rosalina realizes that she has to make this deal right now. Standing up from her seat, the manhwa's protagonist showed the host her number and shouted that she would give 1,000,000 coins for the tears of the wind. After a while, the coveted tears of wind did end up in the hands of the rather protagonist. The happy and joyful girl could not even admire what she gave 1,000,000 gold coins for. The heroine of the manhwa would have already sat down in the carriage, but at that moment a stranger was already approaching her. The same stranger who was sitting beside the heroine shouted to Rosalina that he wanted to offer her a deal. The offer interested Rosalina, so she turned around asking the stranger what he was talking about. Trying to change the heroine's mind, the stranger told the girl that it wasn't just a pretty thing and she wouldn't need it. The stranger came closer to the girl and told her that he would offer 5,000,000 for the tears of the wind if she agreed. To this, the heroine said immediately that she didn't need it, while simultaneously wondering what he was telling her. The manhwa heroine's sudden refusal surprised the masked stranger, but he wasn't about to back down. The indignant girl suspiciously asked him why he didn't immediately give 5,000,000 for the tears if he had them. The mysterious man was bewildered. not even knowing what to say to the bright and intelligent girl. Looking at the stranger with a smile, the heroine said that she knew perfectly well the purpose of this thing. Clutching the precious tears of wind in her hands, the girl said that she wanted to help her sick brother with them. At the same second, the heroine of the story let herself grab the stranger by the collar, threatening him. Piercing the man with her red eyes, the girl told him to give up nicely before it was too late. Suddenly, the masked stranger felt something strange from the girl's insolence. It was as if he was being attacked by a madness he couldn't control. He regrets that his power has awakened just now. It seems that the stranger even imagines that, and the heroine was very afraid of his anger and aggression. In his imagination, he saw the fear in the girl's eyes as he himself reached out his hand to do something to her. The man imagined doing something to hurt her, causing her to quickly turn away from him and scream. The mysterious stranger didn't know how to match the force, but what the heroine said surprised him the most. However, back in reality, Rosalina continued to look at the stranger and asked him if he understood her words. Realizing that he would not be able to procure the tears of the wind, the stranger closed his eyes, resigned to defeat. Adjusting his hood, the stranger said that he understood the girl's words, and he apologized to her for his behavior. Looking away, the man also informed the protagonist that a carriage was surely waiting for her. It seems that the man's emotions show that he is not ready to accept defeat, but there is nothing else for him to do. Suddenly, the boy noticed that Rosalind held out her handkerchief to him, which surprised him even more. The girl continued to hold out her handkerchief to him, causing him to ask her what it was and why. The girl looked pityingly at her interlocutor, telling him to wipe his sweat because, in her opinion, he was very bad. However, the stranger pushed the handkerchief away from him, telling the Manhwa heroine that he was fine. He was about to leave, but Rosalina kept up with him, asking how she could understand it. The girl asked the stranger to accept the gift for giving in to her, but the man replied that he wouldn't accept it anyway. Suddenly, the man felt what the girl had deliberately touched his cheek with her handkerchief. Rosalina continued to wipe the sweat on the stranger's face with a smile, while the man was in genuine surprise. Wiping the man's face, the heroine slyly said that right now he was already using it. The girl also said that now he had no right to refuse her handkerchief. The heroine's words surprised the stranger even more. At this moment, the guy felt a strange feeling similar to pain, and assuming that it was because of madness. But Rosalind was already saying goodbye to him, saying that in the future he would give her the handkerchief if they met again. The protagonist of the story was walking away to her carriage before the man even had time to realize anything. That's how the heroine of the manhwa left the mysterious stranger, surprising him with just about everything she could. After the girl no longer looked at him, the mysterious man decided to remove the mask from his face. It turns out that the stranger was Rosalind's ex-husband, Duke Fielstan, who marveled at how his ex-wife had changed. The day was nearing evening, and a beautiful, red-haired sunset was already looming in the sky. The Duke of Brighton was doing his work as usual, listening to a servant's report on the extinguishing of the fire on the grounds. But suddenly the servant burst into the study again, to whom the Duke asked what was wrong. The Duke of Brighton tapped his pen on the desk as he listened to the servant's words about Rosaline making a fuss in front of the young master's room. Also, when the servant admitted that Miss Eliza was not doing well on her own, the Duke could not stand it and broke the pen in anger. Touching his hand to his forehead, the aristocrat tried to calm down somehow before going to deal with it. But he couldn't, and because of his rage towards his daughter, he shouted her name with all his might. Immediately after that, the Duke did not hesitate. He went to Rosalind to teach her a lesson. Duke Brighton angrily paced the hallway, realizing that he had been very foolish. Remembering Rosalind's face, the Duke realizes that he was foolish for the reason that he forgave her even after betraying her. The aristocrat immediately burst into the room, shouting Rosalind's name again and asking her where she is. The fact was that long ago, the Duke of Brighton had lost two treasures of his life at once. The first such treasure was the mother of the heroine of the manhwa, Beatrice, who died tragically. And also the Duke as a father lost a very rare patron of the Brighton family, his son. It all started with little Rosaline breaking a branch of the magical fairy tree one day. And wanting revenge, the fairy decided to put a curse on them, as she was incredibly angry with everyone. Immediately after the terrible curse, Leodore, son of the Duke of Brighton, fell into an eternal sound sleep. The angry witch also wanted to curse little Rosaline, but Beatrice was already rushing to her aid. Embracing her daughter, the mother managed to save Rosalina from the terrible curse, but it cost her life. The family quickly split when the curse caused Beatrice to go into premature labor. Beatrice ended up dying because of the curse for Rosaline without ever giving birth to her child. After that, the Duke of Brighton was left with only the protagonist, who was shocked by her mother's death. All this time, Rosalind was called the cursed child in the family, which is not surprising because she became a trouble for everyone. And the only person who saw it all with her own eyes is Eliza, who worked as Beatrice's maid. Back in the present, that same Eliza angrily asked to give the heroine of the story what she had in her hand. Piercing Rosalind with a glare, Eliza told her that she could not allow her to feed the sleeping Leodore something suspicious. Rosalina insisted, however, saying that there was nothing suspicious about it and she would prove it. But Eliza kept saying that in that case she had no choice and would order Dorothy to capture her. Hearing the order from the lady, the maid with that name apologized to Rosalina before detaining her. However, it was at that moment that the Duke of Brighton burst into the room and shouted his daughter's name. The father glared menacingly at his daughter, realizing the fact that she once again wanted to pull something on her sleeping brother. As soon as the Duke appeared, he was pounced upon by a crying Eliza, who tried to explain the whole situation. Looking sadly at the nobleman, Eliza told the Duke that Rosalina wanted to feed Leodore something suspicious. The heroine's brother, who had never yet awakened from the curse, was indeed lying in the room sleeping an eternal sleep. The Duke of Brighton came closer to Rosalind, already about to threaten her with his words. The father looked angrily at his daughter, whom he hates, asking her what she was up to this time. But the protagonist of the Manhwa continued to remain silent, even when her father ordered her to answer him. Instead of unnecessary words, she decided to open the flask of wind tears that she's going to help her brother with. To make sure that it was not poison, the heroine first drank some of the tears herself, right in front of everyone. After that, the girl lifted the wind tears upwards, telling everyone that it was them and not poison. Looking at her sleeping brother, who was lying next to her, Rosalina said that with their help she would be able to help him. Eliza, however, shouted at the girl, asking her on what grounds they should all believe her. The heroine replied with a smile that she learned about the tears of the wind in her ex-husband's office, so they should at least trust him. In fact, the heroine had learned it from the very novel she had read before her rebirth, not in Filesden's office itself. The girl glanced at the potion as she continued to tell her family that she had learned many things in her 2 years of marriage. The Duke of Brighton listened attentively to his daughter's words and seemed to gradually begin to believe her. But Eliza continued to be angry, asking the heroine how she was able to get to the place where only the head of the family is allowed to enter. With a wave of his hand, the Duke quickly silenced the maid, trying to tell his daughter his opinion. As the Duke of Brighton sighed tiredly, Eliza didn't even believe that he would listen to Rosalind. Moving closer, the Duke recognized that it was all entirely possible, as Rosalind always gets what she wants. Reaching out his hand to his sleeping brother, the Duke of Brighton let the heroine know that the chance to save her brother was open to her. The heroine of the story immediately moved closer to Leodore, sitting down on his lap and examining him. Looking at his face and long white hair, the girl thinks that she just has to save him and win her father's trust. The heroine began to open a flask of wind tears, hoping that they will help her brother. After that, the girl carefully poured a potion on her brother's tongue, forcing him to swallow the tears of wind. Rosalina began to wait, expecting a miracle and her brother's imminent awakening from his eternal sleep. When the heroine called his name, sincerely hoping that he would open his eyes, she looked at his eyelashes. And at the same moment, Leodore's eyes did indeed flutter open from the magic potion. The Lord's awakening surprised everyone, causing Eliza and the Duke of Brighton to look at him excitedly. However, the first person Leodore saw was Rosalind, whom he called by name and to whom he extended his hand. The protagonist already wanted to hold her brother's weak hand, asking him what he wanted to say to her. Before he said anything, Leodore only touched his sister's hand slightly, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. Leodore said tiredly and sleepily that he thought Rosalind had grown up to be a lady. And immediately after these words, the heroine's brother closed his eyes again, falling into a long sleep. When Leodore went to sleep, the heroine of the story even noticed an unusual pink lightning that appeared above him. The upset girl realized that this is the curse of the fairy, which is still working on him. Gathering to say something to her brother, Rosalina began her monologue by saying that she did not know if he could hear her now. As she continued speaking, the heroine took her brother's hand and promised him that she would help him wake up as soon as possible. The girl even said that she sincerely promised this, which was evident in her honest eyes. The Duke of Brighton could not help but notice the kindness and sincerity of his wicked daughter, which amazed him very much. However, Eliza, who had been watching all this time on the contrary, was not happy about Rosalind's appearance in the house. Looking up angrily with rage, she uttered the heroine's name as if Eliza were about to take revenge on her. After his brother's brief awakening, the Duke of Brighton decided to ask his daughter what she wanted from him. The protagonist's father mentioned both dresses and jewelry, telling Rosalind that he would give her anything. The heroine was surprised that her father went along with her, but at the same time she does not understand why he is so unhappy. The girl wanted to tell her father her wish, but he interrupted her, saying that he would fulfill what she wanted so much as a child. It turns out that all this time the Duke was talking about a summer house, which surprised the protagonist. But Rosalind disagreed with her father, looking at her tea and about to say something to him. Looking at her father, the heroine admitted to him that she didn't need any reward because she was just saving her brother. After that, the girl simply stood up and told her father that she would go, but with that she only surprised the Duke more. However, as the Duke of Brighton thought, when the girl was about to leave, she said that she remembered something. Because of this, the aristocrat was a little wary, listening to his daughter carefully and looking at her. Turning around and looking at the Duke of Brighton, the heroine said that she knew perfectly well that he was very busy with work. And, to the surprise of the gentleman himself, Rosalind only asked to spend more time with her brother, that is, Leodore. After this conversation, the Duke of Brighton strolled through the corridors, remembering his daughter's last words. Looking closely at the large portrait of Rosalind as a child, the father could not believe that his daughter had changed. At that moment, the Duke heard what some regular servant girl was begging the heroine for mercy for her transgression. Coming closer, the aristocrat realized that the maid accidentally spilled a bucket of water on the dress of the heroine, for which she begged for forgiveness. But to the surprise of everyone, Rosalind simply told the maid that it was all right, although she had not forgiven it before. The Duke had been watching his changed daughter closely all this time, not fully understanding the situation. Remembering how she promised her brother to help, the aristocrat even thinks about the fact that she wised up in the Fileston family. Also from the Duke's head did not get out of Rosalind's words about the fact that she spent 3 years alone. All this made the Duke of Brighton think about the heroine of the Manhwa more and more often, even when he was sitting at work. Some of his thoughts about Rosalind he even spoke aloud, which surprised his subordinates, who stood nearby and did not understand anything. After a while, to Eliza already reached the news that the Duke approved the divorce. This made her very angry. Biting her finger from stress, Eliza realizes that it seems that her father took pity on her when he saw her attitude towards her brother. Eliza